diagnosed with breast cancer is is diagnosed every 4 minutes, and every 13 minutes, according to data, a woman passes away due to breast cancer in India. Many of you, of course, all of you almost agreeing that it's totally avoidable, sir. We spoke about early detection, the lack of awareness, but if someone is living with breast cancer, tell us first of all how difficult it is, because we're speaking of a younger generation. What are the concerns when younger women get breast cancer? Is it a more aggressive type of cancer? Is it compounded with further, issues if a younger woman gets breast cancer? Tell us a little more really about the difference. What happens if a woman who's perhaps in her late 30s or early 40s gets breast cancer, Dr. Agrawal?
So, right, I think we are going into a little more detail of breast cancer now. So what has been observed, across the world is that in India, the incidence of breast cancer is about a decade earlier than what happens in the West. Say, for example, if the median age there is 50 years, in India, it's going to be like 40 years. So that is, one very important difference. And it has been observed that, young women getting breast cancer is supposed to be more aggressive. And it is perhaps not dependent on the estrogen or the hormones, as was suggested earlier. So the variety of triple negative breast cancer, where the estrogen receptor or the hormone receptors are negative, and there's another gene called HER2 gene, so which is negative. So all these three receptors being negative, gives an aggressive nature to younger women who get, breast cancer, number one. Number two, the hereditary breast cancer also, tends to occur at an earlier age. So, this basically leads to a more aggressive disease and more women getting stage 4 disease, or women getting, advanced cancer, where cure tends to elude them. Because if somebody gets, a cancer which has gone into the bones or into the lungs or liver, then cures are usually not possible. So as was highlighted earlier, from stage 1 to stage 3, a proportion of patients can be cured. And when you have stage 1, 2, 80 to 90, 95% women can be cured. And then these women are living in the society for long periods of time. So they have their own issues. One is that, they've been through the trauma of cancer. They've been through the trauma of surgery, whether it is breast conserving surgery or it is a total removal of the breast, which may be required for, these women. And then, of course, the side effects of chemotherapy, which can be prolonged, for example, cognitive dysfunctions and other issues, which, and then the stigma of cancer, not only in the family, but also at workplaces, can linger on for months and years together. And then they always have that fear of relapsing. So there are so many issues in, early breast cancer when they are, left after treatment for 6 months or so. So which we need to address with extreme care, compassion, a lot of psychology, care is required for women to cope up with the diagnosis and the treatment of breast cancer.
Yeah. So you spoke about various aspects, one, living with breast cancer, and of course, even post-surgery or post-treatment. Let's bring in Dr. Gogia at this point of time. Dr. Gogia, living with cancer, as Dr. Agrawal just spoke about, very traumatizing experience. Someone who has been diagnosed, someone who has been treated also, what's the aftercare which is required, sir? And is it possible for one to avoid a relapse, or is it something which is totally out of the patient's hand? Just elaborate on that a little bit more, sir, please.
Yes, ma'am. Around 60 to 70% of all the cancer are hormone positive cancer. After the treatment, you have to continue around 5 to 10 years of hormone treatment, post all the treatment, post surgery, post radiation, and post chemotherapy. You have to continue all the treatment to 5 to 10 years to prevent the relapse. So number one. Number two, right now there is so much advances in the triple negative breast cancer, as Dr. Agrawal showed in presentation and talk. This is aggressive and more tend to relapse. So in these cases, we try to keep on maintenance chemotherapy for 6 months to prevent the relapse. And number three, after all the treatment modality, we have to keep watch on weight and exercise and lifestyle modification to prevent all the further relapses.
All right. And, you spoke about, of course, avoiding further relapses. And Dr. Seenu, of course, right at the beginning, had spoken about how perhaps surgery is the only cure. Dr. Sareen, as a surgical oncologist, sir, there is a lot of misgiving about surgery, some of which we addressed right at the beginning. Dr. Agrawal also spoke about that stigma. In your patients, ma'am, do you see that stigma? Do you see this misgiving? Do people tell you that, could you try treating me just by medication or just by radiation, possibly avoid surgery? Of course, breasts and femininity really go hand in hand, and the fear of breast removal is real in a country like ours, isn't it, ma'am? Okay, I can't see Dr. Sareen in the conversation. Dr. Seenu, if you could take that question, sir. I'll put you in the question as well.
Yeah. First of all, I think you have got me wrong. I did not say that surgery is the only treatment.
Okay.
The thing is, when you talk of breast cancer treatment, you call something called as a multimodal treatment. Multimodal treatment means different modalities like surgery, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, targeted therapy, and hormonal therapy. So these are all the 5 methods of treatment which are used for breast cancer. And depending on the biology of the tumor, just now you heard like estrogen receptor positive or HER2 positive. So based on that, you decide as to patient should get only hormonal therapy or only chemotherapy or targeted therapy. It also depends on the age of the patient, the menopausal status, and all those things. So as it stands today, unfortunately, we are not at a stage that you diagnose breast cancer, you give them some tablets and they can go home. No, unfortunately, we are not reached that stage. Still, the treatment is multimodal. For local and regional control, you most often use surgery and radiotherapy. And for systemic treatment, like usually when early breast cancer, you will have small cells, the cancer cells which have gone elsewhere in the body. So to control that, we give chemotherapy, targeted therapy, or hormonal therapy, which is called as the adjuvant treatment. So a patient of breast cancer needs more than one method of treatment. That's why it is called as a multimodal treatment. Surgery is not the only treatment, and nor it is that a patient can get away by not getting surgery.
So what can a patient do, sir? You said, to be very honest, it's a bit confounding. As a layman, if surgery is not the only treatment, then how is it possible that a patient cannot get away without surgery? Can someone get away perhaps with just radiation? Is that possible? Is it possible to avoid surgery or completely, sir?
No, in a single sentence, no. Unless it's a stage 4 disease, it has spread everywhere, then yes. Otherwise, for all treatable breast cancers, surgery is a definitive treatment for loco-regional treatment. And as you said, radiotherapy will be needed if you have done if you have removed just the tumor, then probably radiotherapy is mandatory. Or in some cases, when you have done a mastectomy and you find that the disease is advanced locally, then you need. Whereas the systemic treatment, again, most of the patients, or in fact, almost all the patients will receive some form of systemic treatment. So it's a multimodal treatment.
It's a multimodal treatment. And if you go for breast conservation, that's when a patient may need radiation therapy. All right, point taken. And it's clear now. So Dr. Julka, we're speaking unprecedented times, sir, a time of COVID, unfortunately. Did you see any sort of delay in treatment? Because all of you, especially you and Dr. Agrawal, really hammered home the most significant point here of early detection, sir, because that increases chances of survival. Due to the pandemic, did you see any delay in treatment? Did you see people being more hesitant, or are they still hesitant to come to doctors or perhaps go for mammography?
No, actually, after I came over to Max, joined Max after AIMS.
Yes, sir.
What I find the entire difference here in our center, being a daycare center of chemotherapy, all the people were getting therapy on time. Nobody got delayed treatment and nobody delayed due to COVID. So COVID did not have much impact on our patients. Let me tell you this. Not even a single day we closed our center for COVID. So all the patients were getting treatment.
Yes,
no delay.
I know you were performing your duty. I was asking you about the patient psychology.
No. Patient psychology also, because patients were saying that should we come for chemo or not? I said yes. you must come for your treatment, and treatment should be done on time, irrespective of COVID. And we also gave them the COVID shots, those vaccinations also they got. Most of our patients have got vaccination also, and they were getting regular treatment. That is what I meant to say. And their psyche, you have to change their psyche. That due to COVID, they don't have to delay the treatment. Okay. I always used to say that cancer cells don't have day and night. They don't sleep at night. But,
I get your point, sir. But
because to make laymen understand.
Yes, sir. I get your point, and I think you have you've simplified it really for the layman, and of course, I'm very grateful to you for that. But Dr. Agarwal, sir, all right, maybe, and I'm actually glad to know that the patients perhaps did not hesitate from going ahead with their treatment. But what if someone who already has breast cancer gets COVID? Then what happens? Of course, cases are at an all-time low, and hopefully the scenario is much better right now. But what happens then, sir?
Yeah, no, Meenakshi, I think there are two things which we must address.
Okay.
So your first question was the impact of the COVID on cancer in general and breast cancer in particular.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is there is a huge impact of COVID on cancer diagnosis. Women who were coming in for screening stopped coming. They stopped getting out of their home. Patients who had symptoms of stage 1 cancer, for example, a lump in the breast, they never ventured out of their home for 6 months altogether because there was a lockdown. So that stage migration has happened. Women who were to be treated in stage 1 got on to stage 3 and stage 4, which has really led to a huge burden, not only in India, but also across the world. You look at the figures from UK, USA, the stage migration has happened. So we are overburdened at this point in time, not with early stage breast cancer, but even a larger load of late stage breast cancer or stage 4 breast cancer. So I think that is a huge impact of COVID in general on cancer, including breast cancer. So we need, and I think Dr. Julka rightly said, and I also say to all my patients, there is no lockdown on cancer. Cancer cells are going to increase day by day, week by week, month by month. And if you are in stage 1 today, 4 months down the line, you are going to be, or possibility of stage 3, 4 is very, very high. Yes. So kindly don't delay. And what has happened is that people who were coming from 200 kilometers, 400 kilometers have stopped coming to Delhi or stopped going to Mumbai metropolitan cities. So now they are getting treatment at their places. For example, in B towns like Karnal, Dehradun, Meerut, etc. So, that facility has become a little more stronger now because people cannot travel. Earlier, people were traveling to big towns and big hospitals. Now people are not traveling anymore. So finally, regarding the COVID directly affecting the cancer, so, people who have COVID and cancer, there is a slight increase in risk of mortality, and you don't give chemotherapy or treat these patients. You wait for the COVID to go away and only then you come in. But, the increment in mortality is very little. There isn't a much difference. So we are not worried because, cancer is usually a slow disease. It doesn't, kill a person overnight. And COVID gets over in 15 days time. Yeah. So by and large, and the women are then fit for taking treatment.
Right. And, so 2 points again, which you have raised, of course. One, how COVID affected treatment and how stage migration happened. I can see Dr. Sareen back. Dr. Gogi also have a question for you. Dr. Sareen, let me take a question from you first, ma'am. When we are speaking of cancer treatment, what happens really when someone delays treatment? How difficult does surgery treatment get for you when it's stage 4, because that's happening in many cases due to, of course, the COVID pandemic?
Yes, okay. I agree that there is a stage migration, and the people we see now, we see more of stage 3 and sometimes stage 4. So I must tell you that out of 100 cases, possibly 30-40% of the patients are such who can actually take chemotherapy before surgery. The chemotherapy can be given in triple negative and HER2 patients, and they respond to the chemotherapy pretty well. Like 50-60% of them, the cancer completely disappears if a proper chemotherapy is given in a proper center. So these patients who are coming in stage 3 instead of stage 1 can have the chemotherapy before and can possibly have equally or as good an outcome as if they were in stage 2. Of course, you can't replace stage 1 and stage 3, but they have a good chance of a survival. But
Right.
the rest, 40-50% of the patients where chemo doesn't work very well, are the ones who will be disadvantageous. So, in short,
Correct.
early detection is a must, COVID or
Ma'am,
no
you speak
COVID.
of early
Patients should
detection.
come,
I
but even if they haven't come and they are in an late stage of triple positive or HER2 positive or triple negative, they still have a very good chance of a survival. So that positivity in the women should not be taken away, saying that, you come late and we can't treat you. We can still treat a large percentage of the patients
That's of
and
course
make them well
positive
and make them
message coming in,
cured.
ma'am. But since
So,
as we're almost reaching the end of the debate, and you're all speaking about the early diagnosis, Dr. Gogia, COVID pandemic, of course, has led to delay in treatment. Treatment not from doctor's side, perhaps who's been diagnosed, they continued. But even when it comes to detection, sir, swelling in breast, perhaps skin dimples or irritation, redness, rashes, or change in the size of your nipple or breast, these are not very telltale signs. Many tend to ignore it, especially at the time of the pandemic, sir. Would you say that early detection has been a little elusive in this time? And now that the cases are low, what will be your message to the people, sir?
yeah,
Dr. Gogia, ma'am, let me bring in Dr. Gogia, and then I'll take everyone as a last concluding
okay.
argument. Yes, Dr. Gogia, please.
Breast cancer, the symptoms and sign is not depend on the pandemic or not. If the patient has symptoms, you have to immediate attention with either doctor or either radiologist to get the some tests or ultrasound or mammography to check the breast and diagnose the cancer. Second, the stage migration, definitely yes, stage migration has been done. In the stage 1 and stage 2, the primary modality is surgery. Stage 3 is primary modality is chemotherapy followed by surgery, and stage 4, when the cancer is metastasis, the only modality is chemotherapy. So stage migration can lead to treatment decision of all the patient. So you can get the stage 1 to surgery to immediately go for the chemotherapy. So definitely COVID impact on the diagnosis of the breast cancer, and treatment decision depends on the stage.
Well, absolutely. Treatment depends on stage. And, as we are closing the debate, sir, we've already, I've taken a little more time than I had asked, from you all, Dr. Seenu. I would like to take a last comment from all of you, so starting with Professor Seenu, sir. We've all spoken about the significance of early detection. As a parting message, sir, what would you tell people? A lot of people have misgivings about surgery. What would you like to tell them as your last closing comment? How perhaps it can help a patient, help a doctor like yourself, if it's stage 1 breast cancer, if it's early diagnosis and not later, sir?
Yeah, the message for everyone is that any woman who has a lump, painless lump in the breast, who is above the age of 40 years, or any woman who is more than 30 years has some alteration in the breast, it is the duty of the spouse to bring that patient to the doctor. I think that is the take-home message. And as for early breast cancer, yes, earlier the diagnosis, better is the treatment, the cost is less, the outcomes are much better.
Well, absolutely. And Professor Chulka, you spoke about men also getting breast cancer. Any messaging
Yes.
of men, sir? Very minuscule minority are hardly spoken about, and many are oblivious that they can get breast cancer as well.
Yes, I was going to tell about men also. They should be aware of any breast. Can I have? Is it audible?
Yes, please. It's audible, Dr. Sareen. Could you please switch off your audio, ma'am? Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so men also can get breast cancer, though incidence is very less. It is about 1% of all female breast cancers. And there, hello.
Yes, go ahead, so we can hear you.
Yes, there were some disturbance. So basically, what we want to tell the men also, that they should not be, eluded with the thoughts that they will not get breast cancer at all. When we talk of breast cancer, generally we talk of female breast cancer. We never talk of male breast cancer. So male also should check their breasts. As females, we say self-examination of breast. So they should also check their breast and can get mammograms, and they are, treated just like female
The
breast
treatment, of
cancer.
course, is not different. Dr. Gogia and Dr. Agrawal. Now, let's divide the messaging into messaging for urban and messaging for rural India. And I think Dr. Agrawal,
But one small message, Meenakshi,
yes,
if
please.
one small, early detection is the hallmark to cure. This is my ultimate message.
Well, early detection, the hallmark to cure. Dr. Agrawal, you've spoken about the rural India. That's, of course, a part which is almost untouched, very unfortunately, even by us in the television media, because frankly, that's not really our viewership. But that also is very significant because a large number of cases are coming from there. Any messaging really from that point of view, sir?
Yeah, I can give you some statistics and, some figures. So, for example, in Delhi, the incidence of breast cancer is 40 per 100,000. And in Kerala, you'll be surprised, it is 135 per 100,000. Number one. Number two, I said in India, you get 1.5 lakh nearly new cases of breast cancer with a population of 1.4 billion. You know what is the incidence in America? 2.8 lakhs per year. So look at the statistics suggesting that as you become more economically, much more stable, and you have more of these issues related to women who become, working class, late marriages, not having children, 2 or 3, and not breastfeeding. So those are very, very important features. And that is the reason that the incidence of breast cancer is actually low in rural areas. But that doesn't mean that the mammography machine and the message of breast cancer awareness should not reach the rural areas.
Absolutely, sir. A pertinent point, Dr. Gogia. As we close the significance, what would you like to tell young mothers, lactating women? That also, of course, plays a very significant part in even avoiding breast cancer, isn't it, Dr. Gogia?
Yes, ma'am. All the cases in pregnancy is usually late diagnosed or misdiagnosed because of the lactating woman, and because the breast is heavy and because of the breast is engorged with milk. So most of the pregnant lady with the breast cancer is usually delayed to seek the medical attention. For the pregnant lady, definitely any lump or any engorgement should be taken seriously. Not because of the lactating woman or because milk, it should be considered. And regarding second, urban and rural, regarding the diagnosis, in case of rural area, you have to do self-examination and clinical breast examination in rural area, and for urban area, definitely go for mammography and ultrasound.
All right. Last word to you, Dr. Sareen. Quickly, what will be your parting to the people?
Right. Quickly, I just want to give the message that early breast cancer detection saves your life, saves your breast, saves your money, saves your finances, saves you from the psychological upset. The surgery, breast conservation is 1 day in the hospital. You get admitted in the morning, you're out the next day, and you are okay in 7 days' time. So nobody should be scared of the surgery part, because if you're scared and not coming to the hospital, you make yourself worse, right? And thirdly, the breast cancer is rising in India, and the younger women are getting it more. So be aware. And the fourth message is mammographic screening. The opportunistic women who can afford it must go for mammography, because that's the only modality which has shown to reduce mortality as against clinical examination or breast self-examination.
So mammography for the opportunistic lady who can afford it, who is in the web, and who is at a higher risk. And Dr. Julka told you who are at higher risk.
Those, of course, in urban areas who can afford and have access to mammography, they should go for it. So the messaging really, if I could, include
the surgery part must insist that the surgery part is a small surgery if it's breast conservation. Well, 24 hours in the hospital.
All of that really, everything we've discussed really boils down to early detection. And that's really the key. That's a point which, of course, all our experts today have really hammered down on, and I really hope viewers, it's percolated down to everyone watching the show. If you detect early, you can save yourself the trauma, your money, and of course, most precious, your life. And I hope by this discussion, we have been able to spread that message. For now, I'd like to thank all our experts for joining us on the show. Apologies, we've extended the debate a little bit, but it was such a riveting conversation. I couldn't resist myself from extending it further. And hopefully our viewers, of course, found it as informative as I did while discussing it. Thank you all once again. I hope you all got some opportunity and perhaps an equal and equitable distribution of time to express your views. Thank you so much for joining us on NewsX.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.